Namaste, viewers, and welcome to our inaugural episode of what we'd like to call the Wisdom Workshop, which is a think tank with a difference because we are not directly interested in either influencing policy or making a major intervention in world events as they unfold, but we are really interested in understanding things deeply so that the right action follows. And it's a great honor and privilege for me to begin this series with Sri Rakesh Kaul. I'll introduce him briefly, but first of all, Rakesh ji, namaskar, and thank you so much for joining us. We already consider you a member of our council of mentors because Rakesh ji, friends, is a community leader. He is a pioneer in, well, basically a number of fields, but in terms of narratives, in preserving the stories of Kashmir, you see, after it's gone through a big convulsion. A little background about his achievements. He's a gold medalist from IIT Delhi. He has an MBA from the Booth School of Management, University of Chicago. He served on the boards of major companies. He was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company before retiring. And he's currently the vice chairman of the Indo American Council of Arts. More than that, for our own purposes, he has just come back from Kashmir, and his love of Kashmir is evidenced not only in his own background, which he'll tell us a little bit about, but the two wonderful books he's written. One was called The Last Queen of Kashmir. It was published by HarperCollins. Please read it, viewers. It's about Kota Rani. It's such a gripping and amazing story. So it's a dive into the past. And the next novel he wrote was called Dawn, the Princess of Kashmir, which was actually a kind of science fiction, but more than that. It's set in the future. And let me tell you, viewers, that both these stories are, in a way, about saving not just Kashmir, but saving our civilization, saving the world as we know it, the values that we stand for. And he has a new book called Jala. It's what you may call climate fiction or cli-fi. And it's really about water, water, which is one of the most precious elements which makes life on earth possible. So once again, Rakesh ji, welcome and thank you for joining us. So first of all, tell us about Pragash, this initiative you've started and you've just come from Kashmir. So our topic is Kashmir today, and I can't think of a better way of starting than by asking you about your new initiative.
Yeah, so first, Makarand, thank you for inviting me. You know how much I look up to you. You have written over 400 papers, articles, books, and in a very noisy world, in a very incoherent world, your writings reflect objectivity and neutrality and always a search for the truth. So I feel very honored to be here at the inaugural session. May this series continue to shed pragash and may it shed light. So the genesis of this was several years ago when Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, which is a civil society movement that I'm proud to be one member of, had a conclave in Delhi. And at the end of it, we concluded that we would do the next conclave in Srinagar. So that was the Sankalpa that we took. And we wanted to do it last year. There were lots of challenges, but this year we were determined to do it. And we did it because we wanted to demonstrate to the world that nothing would break our civilizational link to Kashmir. You can take away everything from a people when you commit genocide, but you cannot take away the civilizational link. And the best way for me to make that point in a profound manner, Makaranji, is that on my return, uh, we had an unexpected stop in Rome. And so I had some time and I went through the sites in Rome. And let me compare Rome to Srinagar with you. Srinagar was founded 350 years prior to Rome, Makarand. Now, if you compare these two civilizations, it is true that Rome has preserved all of its great structures that tourists from around the world come to. It is equally true that in Kashmir, because of xenophobia, religious violence, virtually all of our structures that historians had described as incredible structures have been destroyed. But here's a profound difference. Today in Rome, there is not any vestige of that Roman culture, that Roman civilization. It has been wiped out. And I say this with great pride, great, enormous pride, that my community, the Kashmiri Pandits, have kept that culture over the last 10,000 years. We did not get wiped out as a civilization. And so it was that force that led us to this conference in Kashmir. We did a 7-day tour of the major temple sites. We visited the few thousand Kashmiri Pandits who were there as part of the PMO package, who are basically living in very dire conditions. If I was to tell you their stories as to how at every step they are discriminated against, I think our folks who went and met them, uh, it was like a life giving force for them. And then, of course, the conclave. The conclave was historic for several reasons, not the least of which was the fact that the lieutenant governor made not just once, but several times a statement that genocide was committed against the Kashmiri Pandits. Now, you can use that word in a casual manner, but for a constitutional head of the state, or correctly, the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, to whom the security apparatus reports, for him to say that has significance. The conclave achieved a lot, but one message it sent was that, hey, we Kashmiri Pandits, we're back, and we are back in a rupa that perhaps you didn't realize exists today.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. So, just a couple of clarifications. Pragash is actually, as you rightly said, a kind of colloquialism, or the manner in which Prakash itself is pronounced in the Kashmiri language. And going back to the spiritual, metaphysical connotations, Prakash is actually Shiva himself, and Vimarsha is Shakti in the great Kashmiri Shaiva tradition. Though, Trika, or call it what you will, it was spread all over India and even beyond the Indian borders, as we know. And what's happened to Kashmir nowadays has gradually come into the public knowledge and imagination, though it was confined to a very small group of people. And again, I know you've played a very important role in the Kashmir Files, a very brave film, a Parakrami film, as you've called it, of Vivek and Pallavi Agnihotri, telling these stories. Now, viewers, those of you who don't know what happened in Kashmir in the 1990s, a very small and highly, I would say, gifted, community of Kashmiri Pandits, whose homeland it was, the valley, the beautiful valley of Srinagar, the auspicious city, were driven out. And it was a very violent uprooting. It has been called the genocide because it was a targeted elimination. There was atrocities were committed, rape, and the slogans, were horrible. Uh, relief, galif, ya chalif, which really means that convert, basically die or leave. And this was actual. We are not making it up. Please check it out. There's been congressional hearings on this. And unfortunately, India's secular state, so called secular state, was not able in its own territory to protect this minority. Hindus were a minority in Kashmir, they still are. And Rakeshji, you've just told us that the few Kashmiri Pandits who still remain in Kashmir live in the most dangerous and precarious of conditions. The powers that be have still not been able to protect their life, liberty, and property. They are targets, they are picked up. Many of them are teachers, some are doctors. So it's a tragedy on a scale that is unimaginable. But to come back to Prakash, please just tell us, how did you come up with this idea that you will take a group of Kashmiri Pandits? Correct me if I'm wrong. Most of them are settled overseas. They are abroad. They are a part of the KP diaspora, as we call them. How did you come up with this idea of taking this group, which is obviously a very well off and powerful and influential group, back to the homeland? How did you come up with this initiative as a way of consciousness raising and hopefully of the return of at least some of the Pandits to the valley?
So, the narrative is, oh, you are well settled outside. Uh, why would you want to come back? And the fact is that if you go back to Badshah's time, when his father committed the first genocide, then too it took about 31 years. But when Badshah said, okay, I'm going to reverse this policy, it's been very bad for my state, I'm going to bring back the Pandits. Once you learn from history, in 3 years, Professor Makarand, all the Kashmiri Pandits came back. So the basic point was to slay that narrative, but also to go and establish the civilizational link, to establish a link with the Shakta centers, and energize our beleaguered community that's in the valley. There are lots of follow up steps that have come up, not the least of which that the government of the state, separate from the LG, announced publicly that they would look at the feasibility of setting up an apex committee of Kashmiri Pandits. I welcome that. It's a first step. Obviously, I am in the camp of engagement, but engagement from a position of justice first. So it did have a lot of impact. And the fatal flaw that I think the majority community had made was in essentially over the last 37 years, viewing us as supplicants, because they've made life so miserable for the minuscule Kashmiri Hindu community that those people would approach the governance and ask for very basic things. And so these people are used to seeing us as supplicants. But I quote a line from my book, The Last King of Kashmir, where Kota Rani goes to Devaswami, the head priest, and says, what will happen to us? And he says, don't worry. What can be destroyed is finite. what can be created is infinite. And that's the miracle that the Kashmiri Pandits have achieved. Makarandji, one of the members of the group, Forbes has valued him at $3.2 billion. And he has made that wealth honestly, honestly. And he has made that in the last 2 decades. There is nobody in the valley who can stand up and say, I have made this kind of money or even this kind, 1/10 of this kind of success, honestly. So they saw that Kashmiri Pandits globally done well by doing good. And what they killed was the goodness in their life. They killed it. Makarandji, I'll give you one or two more statistics. How much these terrorists, this fundamentalist Islamist force that was unleashed by Pakistan and its proxies, how much damage it has done to the Kashmiri Muslims also. As of June 2025, Makarandji, India had $301 billion of FDI. FDI. That's the India story. You know what Jammu and Kashmir got as FDI? After all of the flurry of announcements that they were going to bring Middle Eastern money and bring Indian, whatever, all that stuff. Total FDI in J&K over the 5 years was $1.34 million out of that 301 billion. They did it to themselves. Nobody in Kashmir stood up and said, this is a wisdom series, so I'm going to give some wisdom. When you kill diversity in the short term, yes, you got a windfall genocide gain. We estimate under that regime, it's been a transfer of $37 billion that got transferred as genocide windfall gain. But fundamentally, nobody understands that when you take away diversity in a society, the economic vitality of that society drops by 40%. Productivity of that society drops. Now, today, they're bringing in Bihari laborers, but we're talking of a much higher level of productivity at a higher level of knowledge that has been eliminated. They basically are accountable for destroying not just Kashmiri Pandits, but even destroying the future of their own children in their zeal, zealotry, and violence. I find it quite amazing that today, when you are inaugurating this series, it's also the day that the government has finally announced that they are filing charges against Yasin Malik and his murderous band on the tragic, sad, sad slaughter and murder of that innocent nurse, Sarla Bhatt, who stayed in her job because she felt she had a duty to care. And she lived in the most dangerous part of Srinagar, but she felt as a healer, nobody would hurt her. And see what they did. That's my point. In killing goodness, you don't just kill the goodness, you kill yourself eventually. You destroy the future of your own children.
So Rakesh, this is such a profound point, which takes us out of the usual binaries in which we are trapped and takes us to a more profound, as you rightly said, wisdom level, civilizational level, and also helps all of us to define what the conflict, not just in Kashmir, but in our world today is. It is between as it was in the Vedic times, between the hoarders, the power mongers, those who want to crush, as you said, diversity, the free flow of knowledge, the free flow of information, the free flow of even money, and those who want to hoard it, control, powerful weapons, and then enslave others, destroy others. So you've, I think, defined it really beautifully. And the impulse behind Prakash or Pragash, as we already guessed from its beautiful naming, was to bring this force of light, this force of goodness, and, as you said, to bring that light back to the homeland from which it spread all over the world. And I'm very glad that in our first episode itself, we have some rays of hope, because Pragash means the first rays of dawn. Usha, in fact, if you go back to the Veda, Ushas. Why am I saying that? Because you have a deep, almost telescopic memory of Kashmir. The seven exiles. We only think about this exile in 1990s, but there have been seven exiles. And you've just told us in our very first episode that evil is not permanent, that it can be reversed. It just takes a few rays of light to remove darkness, even if that darkness has been there for centuries. You gave us the example of Rome. You can preserve these monuments. The Marthan temple itself can be as beautiful as Prambanan, as Subhashji just tweeted. Professor Subhash Kak, another member of our team here. And so we do have these rays of hope, these offshoots, the green shoots of a return to the valley. And on this hopeful note, viewers, we are going to end our first episode, but do join us for the next one, and do like, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. And let's increase the awareness of what's happening in a very important part of India, Kashmir, which we used to call, the crest jewel of India's knowledge tradition. And with these words, I thank you, Rakeshji, once more for joining us and for enlightening us with Prakash. And see you soon. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you for having me.